John Ulzheimer is known as one of our nation's most recognized credit experts. Having worked for 28 years in the credit industry, John has become one of the most prolific speakers about credit and the go-to authority on answers to credit-related questions. Credit Countdown with John Ulzheimer.
Hey there, this is John Ulzheimer. I am a consumer credit expert. I have over 30 years of experience in the credit industry. I've spent time at FICO, which is the company behind the FICO credit scoring system, and Equifax, which is one of the 3 generally recognized credit bureaus in the United States. And so today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of being an authorized user on someone else's credit card. So let me explain what an authorized user is. So if I have a credit card that I opened in my name with some credit card issuer, I can actually authorize the use of my credit line to somebody else. And the way you do that is by adding them as an authorized user, that's where that term comes from, on the credit card account. It's really easy to do. All you have to do is contact the credit card issuer, let them know, hey, I want to add so-and-so to my account as an authorized user. And when that occurs, they're actually going to generate a card in that person's name and they're going to send it to you. You can choose to give it to the authorized user, or you can choose to not give it to the authorized user. It's really entirely up to you. So the pros and cons of being an authorized user. So let's talk about the cons, because the pros are pretty considerable. I want to save the best for last. So the cons of being an authorized user for the authorized user is that you don't have any permissions on the account, meaning that you're not liable for the debt. And because you're not liable for the debt, which is actually a pro, I think, because you're not liable for the debt, you're not going to be able to do things like make changes to the account. You're not going to be able to ask for credit limit increases. You're not going to you can't ask for replacement cards. You really have no permissions with respect to the account. That's really the only pro or con to being an authorized user. The other one, which is kind of a con, which is something that you should have considered prior to being added as the authorized user, is the management of the card. Obviously, if the card is constantly maxed out, if the card is very, very young or new, or if the primary card holder is missing payments on the account, then obviously those are all cons, because that kind of stuff can blow back onto your credit reports. But generally speaking, that's about it as far as cons go. Now the pros, considerable. Number one, credit building. It's how I built credit, back in the dark ages. Being an authorized user on someone else's credit card account is a fantastic way to build, rebuild, establish, whatever word you want to use, your credit reports and your credit scores. It is a very, very common method that people use to add their kids to accounts as authorized users, add their spouses, or add friends, family, whomever. This is a really, really common way to give someone else the ability to get some sort of a credit card account on their credit report, and their credit scores are likely going to benefit as a result, depending on if the account is in good standing and some of the other attributes. So that's certainly a pro. Number 2, buying power and capacity. If you are added as an authorized user on someone else's credit card, you have permission to use the entire credit line, just like the primary card holder has permission to use the credit line. So essentially, you have been gifted a line of credit by some other person who is not a lender, and that's really what I call this kind of gift of capacity, if you will. So that's certainly a pro. Another pro is what we talked about a minute ago, is you have no liability for the debt. So if the card, in the worst case scenario, gets maxed out, and the bill collectors start coming for payment, they can't come after you because you have no liability for the debt. And so that's really one of the primary pros of being an authorized user, is even though there may be debt associated with the account, it's not your debt. Even though it may show up on your credit report, it is not your debt, meaning that no one can come after you for payment on that account. So that's about it. Pros and cons of being an authorized user. I will tell you, and I don't mind giving you kind of some personal examples. I'm the authorized user on several of my wife's credit cards. She's the authorized user on several of my credit cards. I was added as an authorized user on my father's credit card when I was a very, very young person. And that's how I established credit for the first time. So I really, really like the authorized user strategy. as a credit building, credit rebuilding, establishing credit strategy, because it is just so effective. And there are so many pros and so few cons to the approach. I really, really like the fact that Authorized User has kind of stood the test of time and has remained a real thing in the world of credit cards. When I'm talking about how old this process is, I got into the credit industry in 1991. That's a long time. That's long ago than most of you, than your age, meaning that I've been in the industry for longer than a lot of you have been alive. And the Authorized User strategy predates my first job in the credit industry. So it is a really, really old strategy. It's very, very effective. It's generally recognized and accepted. So if you have any other questions about the Authorized User approach to building credit, drop them in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. We'll talk again soon.
For more videos and credit tips from John Ulzheimer, go to www.tradelinesupply.com.